Welcome to Old School Sundays. I'm your host, Odell. Let's get into some history. They say the air in the Mississippi Delta carried more than humidity back in the 80s. It carried sound. The sound of whistles slicing through the heat, of quarterbacks barking out plays on sun cracked grass, of a football spinning tight against a blood orange sky. Down in Abena at Mississippi Valley State, there was a field that didn't look like much, a patch of dirt and determination. But on that field, a young man named Willie Totten was rewriting the gospel of football. They called him Satellite because every pass he threw seemed to find orbit. And catching those spirals was a skinny kid from Crawford, Mississippi, who would one day be called the greatest receiver alive, Jerry Rice. Before the NFL lights and Hall of Fame speeches, Jerry learned how to win from Willie, how to run through pain, how to outthink a defense, how to believe when no one else did. But when the records were broken and the scouts came looking, they saw one star and left the other behind. This is the story of the man the world forgot, but Jerry Rice never did. Mississippi Valley State wasn't the kind of place scouts flew into. The school sat deep in the Delta, where the air hung thick and the roads bled into fields of cotton and catfish ponds. The football field looked more like a patch of survival than a stage. Grass worn thin, bleachers peeling paint, goalposts leaning with fatigue. But that's where the magic began. Willie Totten didn't need shine, he needed a chance. A lanky kid with calm eyes and a whip of an arm, he carried himself like he belonged to a bigger story. They called him Satellite because his throws seemed to orbit on their own signal. And on the other end of those spirals was a quiet receiver named Jerry Rice, whose hands refused to drop anything that came his way. Every Saturday felt like a sermon, Cooley preaching offense, Totten delivering gospel, and Rice catching every verse. The crowd was small, but the noise was defiant. They played not for headlines, but for proof that greatness didn't need TV lights to be real. Because in Mississippi Valley, football wasn't a pastime, it was protest. And the revolution had only just begun. But the man leading it had a coach with a vision even wilder than his own. Archie Gunslinger Cooley didn't walk into Mississippi Valley State to blend in. He came to make noise. He wore cowboy boots to practice, spoke with the swagger of a man who'd already seen the future, and carried a whistle like a preacher carries scripture. Cooley looked around at that cracked Delta field and saw something no one else did: potential. Not just for wins, but for change. Football in the early 80s was slow, safe, and predictable. Coaches feared mistakes more than they chased greatness. But Cooley didn't play scared. He believed in chaos. He ripped up the old playbook and created his own. No huddles, five receivers wide, a quarterback free to improvise like a jazz soloist. Every snap was a new sound. We're going to score until they quit, he told his team, and they believed him. Willie Totten became his instrument, cool under pressure and precise with the ball. Jerry Rice became his echo, catching everything that moved. Together, they didn't just win games, they overwhelmed them. Mississippi Valley started putting up basketball scores on football fields, and word spread fast. But Cooley's creation wasn't just entertainment, it was rebellion wrapped in motion. A system that dared to say black coaches could innovate, black quarterbacks could lead, and small schools could shake the nation. And as the numbers piled up, the rest of college football started paying attention, even the ones who refused to give credit where it was due. From the moment they stepped on the field together, it was as if Willie Totten and Jerry Rice shared the same pulse. They didn't talk much, just worked. Every drill, every rep, every drop of sweat was part of a silent agreement between them. Outwork everybody, outthink everybody. Totten threw with rhythm, like a drummer keeping time, and Rice moved with precision, like he'd measured every inch of the field the night before. The connection was immediate, unspoken but undeniable. Coach Cooley gave them the freedom most players only dream about. You see it? Take it, he told Totten. If he's open, feed him, he'd say about Rice. And that's exactly what they did. Week after week, the satellite connection made defenders look lost, setting records that felt impossible. Totten threw for over 4,500 yards in a single season. Rice caught 27 touchdowns. Their timing was so perfect, that sometimes Willie released the ball before Jerry even made his cut, trusting the route, trusting the man. The fans knew they were watching something historic, even if the rest of the country didn't. Local radio called them the dynamic duo. Scouts called them too good to be true. But every Saturday, they proved otherwise. Still, the higher they soared, the more the outside world tried to look away. Because two young black men dominating football from an HBCU didn't fit the script college sports was used to writing. And when greatness comes from a place the world refuses to look at, the real fight always starts after the final whistle. By 1948, the secret was out. The Rice Totten show wasn't just a local legend anymore. It was a spectacle too big to stay buried in Delta. Mississippi Valley State was dropping 60 points a game, turning college football into a fireworks display. ESPN cameras finally made the trip, reporters crowded the sidelines, and opposing coaches admitted off the record that they had no idea how to stop it. One week, Totten threw 9 touchdown passes, 9. Rice caught 3 of them, and it still didn't feel like enough. They finished that season with over 10,000 combined passing and receiving yards, a record that looked like a typo. Mississippi Valley, a school most networks couldn't even spell right, was now dictating the pace of the game. But behind the celebration, something darker stirred. Scouts came through, scribbling in their notebooks, yet most of them had already decided what they were seeing. They weren't evaluating equals, they were cherry picking a story. They saw Jerry Rice as a future star, but Totten, too small, too black, too system based. Willie had done everything right, led the nation, won with class, shattered expectations, but he didn't fit the league's image of a quarterback. It wasn't about talent, it was about perception. And when draft day came, that perception would cost him everything, because even record books can't protect you from the politics of progress. Draft day came and went like a storm that never touched down. Inside Mississippi Valley's athletic office, players huddled around a radio, waiting for the words they thought were inevitable. Willie Totten selected by, but the words never came. Pick after pick, round after round, silence. Jerry Rice's phone rang early. The 49ers were calling to make him a first rounder. Cameras flashed and headlines bloomed. And somewhere in the same state, the quarterback who had thrown him every touchdown sat in a small apartment staring at a phone that refused to ring. For Totten, it wasn't heartbreak, it was confirmation. The NFL wasn't ready for his kind of quarterback. Black quarterbacks were still being told to switch positions, to play where their athleticism could shine. Never mind that he'd commanded an offense that revolutionized passing itself. He was the prototype for the future, but the system saw him as an anomaly. Reporters framed it politely. Totten's numbers may not translate to the pro game. Translation? He doesn't look like what we're used to seeing. Teams that built their empires on innovation refused to recognize the man who had already done it. So Willie went north to the CFL, chasing the game that had betrayed him. He played for smaller crowds, smaller checks, but the same purpose to prove he could still make the ball sing. Yet, every time Jerry Rice crossed another milestone, the shadow of Mississippi Valley followed quietly behind. Because one made history and the other made impossible. And history rarely remembers both. Time has a way of humbling the game, of peeling back the noise and leaving only the truth. And the truth was this: Willie Totten didn't disappear, he went home, back to Mississippi, back to the same crack field that once carried his dream. Now, as the head coach of Mississippi Valley State, the same man who the NFL deemed unfit to lead was now shaping the next generation of quarterbacks who looked just like him. The school renamed the stadium Rice Totten Stadium, two names bound together forever, one that reached the Hall of Fame and one that never got the chance. But every fall Saturday, when the sun sets over the Delta and the band blares across the bleachers, both legacies live there because what they built wasn't about stats or headlines, it was about proof. Proof that brilliance could be born anywhere, proof that leadership doesn't need permission, proof that being overlooked doesn't mean you were ever outplayed. Totten's fingerprints are still on every air raid offense, every quick strike quarterback lighting up the NFL today. His system, once dismissed as chaos, became gospel. And though his name never filled stadiums, it filled history's silence. Because legends aren't always crowned in gold. Sometimes they're buried in the dirt they refuse to leave behind. And somewhere in that Mississippi heat, the ball still spins, waiting for the world to finally catch up. The old field at Mississippi Valley still breathes if you can listen close enough. The bleachers creak, the wind hums through the uprights, and the ghost of Saturday's past still whisper the cadence of plays long gone. Somewhere out there, the imprint of a football fades into the dirt, the same dirt where Willie Totten once taught Jerry Rice how to win. The scoreboard is silent now, but if you squint, you can almost see the numbers: 58 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, a revolution born in the Delta. The NFL never gave Totten his spotlight, but his ideas are everywhere. In every no huddle, every spread offense, every quarterback given the freedom to create. His legacy didn't fade, it just evolved. And for every young player who dreams from a small school, his story still matters. Because the question still hangs in the air like one of his perfect spirals. How many more Willies have we missed? How many game changers went unseen because they didn't fit the mold? The camera pans across the empty stands, one helmet left on the 50-yard line, faded, cracked, waiting. If you remember those days or lived through that gory, like this video and subscribe for more, because in this game, history never really stays buried.